There are moments in life when the silence of our home echoes louder than any scream. You come home from work, close the door behind you, and the sound of the key turning in the lock seems to echo for an eternity. The empty apartment welcomes you with that cruel familiarity that only those who live alone know. You turn on the TV not because you want to watch something, but because you need to fill the void with some noise that masks the sound of your own thoughts. Maybe you spent the whole day surrounded by people, laughing at jokes you didn't find funny, agreeing with conversations that didn't interest you, playing a role that even you don't know when you started playing. And now, in this moment of absolute truth, when there is no longer an audience to impress or masks to wear, you are faced with a reality that hurts more than any physical injury. You are completely alone, not only in space, but in existence. Your pains, your deepest fears, those thoughts that visit you at 3 in the morning when the world is asleep, all of this remains locked inside you like a safe that has lost its key, because there is no one, really no one, who can bear the weight of what you carry. Franz Kafka knew this better than anyone, he who lived loneliness as a dark art form and discovered that some pains are too great to be shared, too heavy to be divided. And that is exactly what we need to talk about today. If you've come this far, I know it wasn't by chance. I know there's something inside you that recognizes this pain, that understands this deep isolation that goes far beyond simply not having people around. This channel exists for you who carry invisible burdens, for you who have tried to explain your loneliness to others and felt even more misunderstood. Here, you are not alone on your journey of self-discovery and healing. If you feel that this is a safe place to explore these deeper questions of human existence, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because every week we bring reflections that can illuminate dark corners of the soul that you thought no one else knew about. And if this content is touching something real inside you, leave your like, not just as support, but as a silent signal to others who are going through the same experience, showing them that they are not alone on this journey either. True loneliness is not the absence of people around us, but the impossibility of being genuinely understood by someone. Kafka experienced this so intensely that he transformed his personal experience into a literary work that still haunts us today. With its psychological precision, he knew that there are pains that are like foreign languages. No matter how hard we try to translate them, something is always lost in communication. When you don't have true friends, it's not just companionship that's missing, it's the witness to your existence. It's someone who can look at you and say, "I see you, I understand you, and despite everything, you're not wrong to be who you are." Without this external validation, we begin to doubt not only ourselves, but our own reality. We begin to question whether our emotions are valid, whether our thoughts make sense, whether our life experience has any value. The absence of true friends creates a kind of echo chamber where our fears and insecurities reverberate endlessly, taking on distorted proportions that make us feel even more strange and out of place in the world. Kafka described this feeling as being a stranger in one's own life, observing oneself from the outside as if one were a character in an absurd play whose script one has forgotten. The difference is that in theatre, when the curtain closes, the actor can take off their costume and go home. But for those who experience this existential loneliness, there is no home to return to, because you carry the theatre inside you. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own life, carrying pain that seems too big to fit into any normal conversation? You know those moments when someone asks how you are and you say you're fine, but inside there's a whole universe of complexity that could never be explained in a casual response. If you are experiencing this right now, if you feel that your pain is invisible and incomprehensible to the world, leave a comment. I carry pain that no one else can see. Your courage in sharing this may be exactly the light that someone else needs to realize that they are not alone in this experience. Sometimes, Just knowing that someone understands is the first step toward healing. What makes this situation even more cruel is that, paradoxically, the more pain you carry, the harder it becomes to connect with other people. It is as if the intensity of your inner experience creates an invisible barrier between you and the world. You become hyper-aware of your differences, of the depth of your existential questions that seem to have no place in everyday conversations about the weather or the events of the week. Kafka understood that some people are condemned to a kind of painful lucidity, an ability to see through social masks that makes it almost impossible to genuinely participate in the collective theater of normality. You perceive the superficiality of interactions, feel the artificiality of automatic smiles, recognize the emptiness of conversations that dance around truths that no one wants to touch. And this perception, instead of making you feel superior, makes you feel even more isolated, because you desperately wish you could fit into this apparent simplicity that everyone around you seems to master so naturally. It's like being the only one awake in a world of sleepwalkers, carrying the lonely burden of consciousness while watching everyone walk calmly toward destinations you can neither see nor understand. The pain of not having true friends goes far beyond the basic social need for companionship. It's about not having someone who can be an authentic witness to your inner journey, someone who understands not only what you do, but who you are beneath all the layers of social adaptation you've developed in order to survive. When you carry deep pain without anyone to genuinely share it with, it begins to ferment inside you, creating a kind of existential melancholy that colors your entire perception of reality. You begin to see the world through lenses that others do not have, developing a keen sensitivity to emotional nuances that go unnoticed by most people. Kafka knew that this unique sensitivity is both a gift and a curse. It allows you to access depths of human experience that few know, but it also condemns you to a loneliness that few people can understand or bear. It is as if you speak an emotional language that has no direct translation, forcing you to live in a kind of internal exile where your deepest truths remain forever unexpressed and misunderstood. There is a bitter irony in the fact that the people who most need genuine connection are often those who find it most difficult to establish. The depth of their inner pain creates an almost desperate need for authentic understanding, but that same emotional intensity can be intimidating to people accustomed to more superficial relationships. It is as if you carry within you an ocean of emotions in a world where most people are comfortable only in shallow pools. Kafka masterfully explored this contradiction in his works, showing characters who desperately crave connection, but whose complex and questioning nature makes them incompatible with conventional forms of relationship. You may be surrounded by people who consider you a friend, but still feel deeply alone because none of these relationships really touch the core of who you are. They know your opinions on movies, your eating habits, maybe even some of your most obvious problems, but they remain completely oblivious to the inner universe that truly defines your experience of being alive. And you learn to accept these superficial friendships as inadequate substitutes for what you really need, knowing that revealing your true depth could scare these people away, leaving you even more alone than you already feel. The absence of true friends forces you to develop a very intimate relationship with yourself, which can be both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, you become your own confidant, developing a capacity for self-analysis and introspection that can be deeply enlightening. On the other hand, this constant introspection can turn into an obsessive spiral where you get stuck in cycles of thoughts that have no resolution because there is no other perspective to break the pattern. Kafka lived this experience so intensely that his diaries became one of the most penetrating works on the psychology of loneliness ever written. He discovered that when you are forced to be your own best friend, you also become your harshest critic. Without the outside perspective of someone who truly cares about you, you can easily lose sight of what is healthy self-criticism and what is self-destruction disguised as honesty. You know all your flaws with painful clarity, but you have no one to remind you of your qualities when they are obscured by the shadows of self-deprecation. It's like living in a room with mirrors on all the walls. You see yourself from every possible angle. But all that visibility can become claustrophobic when there are no windows to the outside world. The pain you carry in the absence of deep friendships is not only emotional, it becomes existential. You begin to question not only your ability to connect with others, but your own legitimacy as a human being. If no one really knows or understands you, do you really exist in the way you believe you do? Kafka explored this ontological terror with a precision that still makes us shudder today. He knew that human identity is not something that exists in a vacuum, but something that is constructed and confirmed through mutual recognition with other human beings. When that recognition is absent, you begin to doubt your own substance, as if you were a ghost who only believes he is alive. Your most meaningful experiences, your deepest insights, your most important revelations remain unwitnessed, and this creates a peculiar sense of unreality. It is as if you live two parallel types of existence, an external one, where you function adequately in necessary social interactions, and an internal one, rich and complex, but completely invisible to the world. Over time, you may begin to doubt whether this inner life really has value, whether your thoughts and feelings are real or just elaborate fantasies of a mind that spends too much time with itself. The weight of this existential loneliness manifests itself in subtle but persistent ways in your daily life. You may find yourself developing private rituals, small personal ceremonies that no one else knows about or would understand, as a way of creating meaning in an existence that seems to have no witnesses. Perhaps you talk to yourself more than you would like to admit, not out of madness, but out of a need to hear your own ideas verbalized, to give some materiality to thoughts that would otherwise remain eternally internal. Kafka did this through writing, transforming his loneliness into a work of art, but not everyone has this talent or creative outlet. You may realize that you guard memories with almost religious care because you are the only person who truly knows the full meaning of certain experiences. A song that played at a specific moment, the smell of a season that reminds you of a personal epiphany, a book that changed your perspective on something fundamental. All these treasures remain yours and yours alone, with no one with whom to share not only the fact, but the emotional depth of what they represented to you. It is a unique form of wealth and poverty simultaneously. You completely own these experiences, but they have no exchange value in the world of human relationships. The experience of carrying pains that no one else could bear also develops in you a peculiar compassion for those around you, even when they are unable to offer the reciprocity you so desperately need. You realize that each person deals with their own invisible burdens, and this realization can either ease your loneliness or intensify it. On the one hand, you develop an almost telepathic empathy for the unexpressed pains of others, recognizing subtle signs of suffering that go unnoticed by most people. On the other hand, this same sensitivity makes you realize even more clearly how fundamentally isolated people are from one another, how each human being lives in a kind of transparent prison of their own subjective experience. Kafka explored this paradox of solitary compassion, showing how a deep understanding of the human condition can be simultaneously comforting and despairing. You become capable of loving humanity in an abstract way, while continuing to feel disconnected from the concrete humans around you. It's like being a doctor of the soul who can diagnose the pains of others with surreal precision, but cannot find a cure for their own condition. There is also a unique temporal dimension to the experience of not having true friends who understand your pain. The past becomes simultaneously more and less real. More real because you are forced to revisit it constantly, analyzing and reanalyzing experiences without having another perspective to validate or question your interpretations. Less real because there is no one to share your memories with, who can say, "I remember when you went through that," or "You've changed a lot since then." Your future also takes on a different quality because you cannot imagine it being witnessed or shared with someone who really matters. Kafka knew that loneliness fundamentally alters our relationship with time, creating a kind of stagnant eternity where the present stretches on indefinitely because there are no relational milestones that create a sense of progress or change. You may be evolving profoundly as a person, developing insights and wisdom that would take years to be recognized, but without someone to witness this transformation, it remains almost abstract, as if you were simultaneously the sculptor and the sculpture, but never the observer who can appreciate the final result. The deepest irony of carrying pains that no one else could bear is that it often develops in you an inner strength that few people possess, but that few people can recognize or appreciate. You become resilient in ways that don't show up on resumes or in casual conversation. You develop an almost heroic ability to be with yourself, a skill to face truths about existence that most people carefully avoid. Kafka knew that there is a kind of quiet courage in continuing to live when you carry the full weight of existential lucidity without the cushioning of the collective illusions that sustain most people. But this strength remains largely invisible and unrecognized because our society values more extroverted types of resistance and overcoming. No one gives medals to those who can look into the abyss of human existence and still choose to continue, day after day, building meaning from internal materials. No one celebrates the courage of those who face their own shadows without someone holding their hand in the dark. It is a form of heroism that can only be truly understood by those who have lived the same experience, creating an invisible brotherhood of people who recognize each other through looks that carry the same weight, but who rarely meet or identify with each other. Perhaps the most important lesson we can draw from this Kafkaesque experience of unwitnessed loneliness and pain is that there is a profound dignity in carrying your burdens with grace, even when no one is watching. There is a quiet nobility in continuing to grow, learn, and transform, even when your progress is not celebrated or even noticed. The absence of true friends can force you to develop a more honest and deeper relationship with yourself, to find internal sources of validation and meaning that are more lasting and reliable than any external approval. Kafka taught us that the human condition is fundamentally lonely, but that within that loneliness there are possibilities for transcendence that can only be discovered by those who are brave enough to face the truth of their own existence without distractions or superficial consolations. Your unwitnessed pains are not a sign that there is something wrong with you. They are evidence that you are living more deeply and authentically than most people can bear. And maybe, just maybe, recognizing this is the first step toward finding others who speak the same existential language, who carry the same kinds of invisible burdens, and with whom you can finally discover that you are not as alone as you thought.